If you're finding that Couch to 5K or any structured introduction to running course is moving too fast, or you feel you get stuck at a certain point, or you feel that you're somehow failing to complete the course, then this video is for you. This comes up quite a lot in our Running for Beginners Facebook group. Hopefully you're in there. There's thousands of us sharing running stories and advice, so I'd love for you to join us if you're not already in there. And I just see this coming up a lot where people, they get so far into it and then they feel they can't go any further, and so they just give up, and then they get frustrated because they're like, oh, I really want to be a runner, but I can't complete this program. And I've seen other people suggest, well, you need to try a different program or this other method, and maybe that would be helpful. But I think what you really need is the stuff I'm going to talk about in this video. So hopefully we'll be able to troubleshoot your problems here. Now, the problem with these programs is that they give you some kind of arbitrary deadline, right? It's like an 8-week program or a 10-week program or a 12-week program. And that can be good in that it tries to keep pushing you forward, but it can also be bad because maybe that's just not the right speed for you and you need to work at a different speed. And we'll discuss that in this video. So first of all, hello, I'm Chris. I'm a running coach. I'm also a psychologist. And the problem with any kind of off-the-shelf program is that it's never going to be personalized to you, right? You have a different body to me and everyone else on the planet, and it's never going to be personalized to you. And of course, you can get a personalized training program by working with a coach, but we're really expensive. And if you're just getting into running, then you don't want to be spending loads of money on a coach. But you can self-coach. And the first step here is I would just get rid of the idea that you need to hit this arbitrary deadline and that you need to work through the program in that number of weeks. So if it's a 10-week program, you don't actually need to complete the program in 10 weeks. Think of it more like a series of steps that you work through as you feel comfortable doing that. And there's a bunch of reasons why you might not be able to keep up with the program, or you might find the program too easy. Like some people just have a lot of natural athletic ability, and actually they could just go out and run a 5-kilometer run tomorrow, even if they've never run before. Maybe they play other sports and they're just fit and they have that natural ability. Others won't have the same level of natural ability and will find it much harder. Then we've also things like size and weight and body composition. Those are going to affect how easy we find it to start running. Maybe there are previous injuries that we need to, or underlying medical conditions that we need to take into account as well. Also, do you play any other sports, and what's your general fitness activity level? If someone's an elite cyclist, they're probably going to take up running really well. Whereas if you don't play any other sports or other activities, then you're going to struggle more. Similarly, how much time do you spend on your feet? How much time do you spend walking? If you have an office job, if you spend the whole day sat in a chair, then your legs are just not going to be used to the same amount of movement as if, say, you work in a warehouse picking things all day and you spend your whole day on your feet walking around. Then your legs are going to be a bit more geared up to take that physical activity. Then things like the weather conditions. Where do you live? If you live in a really warm or really cold climate, if you live in a very hilly area, you're probably going to find it more difficult because just the local terrain is less hospitable to running. And then of course there's the self-belief. If you're just someone who is naturally highly motivated or has found a way to really have a lot of self-belief that they can do it, you're going to find it much easier. And if you're someone who's just coming to fitness for the first time, has maybe had some setbacks, then it is going to be a struggle. And that's not to say you can't overcome it, because I absolutely believe you can. But maybe there's some acceptance there that it's not going to be as easy as someone who's just filled with self-belief. And so the problem is when we take these arbitrary deadlines, then we end up putting a load of pressure on ourselves. We say, okay, it's got harder this week and I have to hit this week or I'm a failure. And that's pretty common for people to feel like a failure. And I want to emphasize the idea that you're not a failure. There's no way that you can really fail. If you run 10 meters, then you're a runner. You're probably not an endurance marathon runner, but you're on that journey of being a runner. And so just because you feel you can't hit some arbitrary deadlines in your Couch to 5K program certainly doesn't mean there's any failure or that you haven't kept up or that you're not as good as other people, because what does good even mean? But even so, a lot of people struggle with any arbitrary program because it's designed for like the middle, right? So there's half the people here and half the people here, and the program's here. So for 50% of the population, the program's probably going to be too easy, and for 50, it's going to be really challenging. And that's just the way that you have to make a program for the most amount of people, but then nobody's going to fall on that perfect center line. So what can you do if you're really struggling to work at the pace that the Couch to 5K program prescribes? Well, there's a bunch of stuff. One is just get rid of the idea that you need to work through it week by week. So if you're absolutely at your limit, you feel you can't do a certain week, don't then go on to the next week, the week after. Like, just do the same week again, maybe even go back a week till you once again feel comfortable. And if you have to repeat that week a bunch of times and just keep doing it until you feel comfortable, well, that's absolutely fine. There's no reason that you need to work through that arbitrary deadline. I'd really encourage you to keep mixing up the walking and the running, because what we really want is a volume of work. The reason that Couch to 5K gives you a 30-minute workout is because that's what we want to be aiming for. If you go out and just sprint and you can only manage a minute or 2 minutes or 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and then you have to stop, then that's not going to build up your endurance in the same way that if you do 1 minute running and then say 2 minutes walking. Well, if you did that for half an hour, you would do 10 minutes of running and 20 minutes of walking. And that's going to be a lot better for your fitness than if you just try and do 10 minutes of continuous running and then have to give up because you've got nothing left. If you can keep modulating your efforts to keep your heart rate in a reasonable range, one, it's going to be a lot less painful, so you're going to be more motivated to keep doing it, but two, you're going to work on that endurance and that will come over time. Number 3 is be consistent. So the longer that you keep running, the more that you will incorporate this idea that you are a runner into your self-identity. And once you think of yourself as a runner, you're going to find it much easier to get out there. So it's much easier to do little consistent bits than if you try and do loads and then just get fed up and stop doing it. If you do that, you'll probably think of yourself as someone who tried running and couldn't do it. If you just go for a little run once, twice, 3 times a week, and you do that consistently for a couple of months, then you'll have a couple of months of evidence of showing yourself that you are a runner, and you'll find it much easier to think of yourself as a runner. And so even when you get to these points when you get stuck, you'll think, yeah, but I am a runner, and I can just keep going like this. I'll just stick at the same level. Doesn't matter that I'm not making amazing progress. I will just keep going because I am a runner. And where I get to is where I get to. Alongside that, I'd encourage you to have some self-compassion. Like, in general, we in modern society just need to be nicer to ourselves. It's very easy to let that little voice in our head say we're not good enough, that we are less than, that we are not as good as other people. And the reality is that no matter who you are valued, you are worthy of love, and you have the right to be the person that you are. And you don't need to apologize for that. You don't need to be better than you are. Of course, we can try and improve ourselves and work towards that, but we don't need to apologize for being where we are now. And so if you do find that voice creeping in, just remind you that Chris said, I need to have a bit of self-compassion that the person I am now is fine. And if I want to make changes, I can, but I don't need to apologize for being me. And remember also that you have that value without comparison to others. Are there people out there that are progressing through the program faster? Yes, absolutely. There are always going to be faster people than you. Unless you are Kipchoge running a 2-hour marathon, there are many people out there who are faster than you. But that doesn't mean that your times and your efforts and your running is worth any less. So in conclusion, any structured program is going to set you with some arbitrary time deadlines. And because we all have different bodies and the different factors that I discussed in this video, then there's no reason that you should necessarily hit that, because we'll all be different. So just take it a week at a time and don't feel that you need to move on until you feel comfortable to move on. And if you get stuck, you can stay there, you can move back, you can do whatever you need to do to keep going, because if you keep being consistent with your running, that's when you'll start feeling like a runner. And then it really doesn't matter whether you're making progress or not, as long as you're getting out the door, getting some time in, then that's going to move you forward. Hopefully that was useful. If so, please give this video a thumbs up. And if you want more tips on psychology and running, then hit the subscribe button. That's what my channel is all about. And I would love to hear you get on. Did you recognize yourself in any of the elements I discussed? If so, let me know in the comments. And I look forward to seeing you soon.